telling everybody what we do, or do they already know?
That would be great. I don't think everyone here knows, your message, the RASA transmission, etc. So it'd be great for you to share some of that.
Okay. And you know what? I'm going to make it so quick, and I'm going to talk about this in a slightly different way than I usually do. But just to begin with, RASA is a spiritual transmission that I give along with my partner Ramaji. We teach non-duality either alone or I teach students, and he teaches students, or we teach together. Or we rotate. They come to me and then they go to him, and it just depends on the person. But to give you guys a better understanding of raising one's LOC, which is really what we use the RASA for, we use it to help raise a person's level of consciousness. And it's based on Ramaji's book. And the book is called 1000. And for those of you who have not yet read the book, I always recommend you do, because it is super empowering. What happens is then you can work alongside either of us or even another RASA giver, and you kind of get the feel of where you're at yourself, so that you're in charge of your own kind of process. And then we kind of validate and help you along the way, mentor you till we call the place where we say you've finished. But I just want to clear something up, because I'd like you to think of a level of consciousness or consciousness itself pertaining to kind of like when you were a child, a baby born. And then you just think of this clear kind of windscreen, and like the windscreen of your car, and it's just completely clear. And then as you start to get older, you suddenly given at the age of 2, or you're given a name immediately, but at the age of 2, you kind of start to know that you're this name. And with that, you develop tendencies, you get conditioned, you come from a certain family, and on it goes. You get educated, you make your friends, you have your interests, and usually they're based on, a lot of the time, what your parents expect of you, society expects of you. And I want you to think all the while of this consciousness that you are. And then I want you to think of all these things I'm speaking of as kind of being, it's a weird word, but let's call it dirt. And it's slowly tinting this clarity. And beliefs, things that stand in your way, identity crises, doing what is expected of you versus not really what you want to do. And all this dirt kind of accumulates on a very clear, beautiful windscreen. What the RASA does really is it is like a windshield wiper, and it starts to wipe the consciousness. So slowly but surely, as one starts to get the RASA, sometimes what happens is the dirt starts to show itself. You start to become aware of it, because more often than not, people are not aware of what is actually going on, why they're seeking, what is stopping them from being their authentic true selves, where it's all coming from. So this RASA is really stirring the pot, so to speak, but in a good way at the end of the day. And then what happens is we call it a rise in LOC, but that can be misleading, because then people think that, oh, when I'm finished, I have a higher LOC, like my consciousness is now higher from where it started. No. And that's actually incorrect. What it is it's free, it's clear. So finally, what we call finishing is self-realization, when you realize that all that was just dirt. And these wipers were wiping away the dirt. So you've now got this clean, blank slate. So if you were to ask me, when does consciousness begin to rise, really? It's actually post 1000. Because when you post 1000 and your slate is now clean, and you're being so authentic, so yourself, so true to you, and nothing can really stop you at that point, that's when you start to develop interests in the areas that really suit you. You start to come from a very authentic space where you're very loving, very kind, caring, and it starts to integrate into your system, which can take a couple of years, couple of years. It's an ongoing process. So I hope that this gives you guys generally a better understanding of consciousness itself, which is always, you know, we always say to people, you are perfect just the way you are. In actual fact, there's nothing that needs to change other than maybe a little cleaning up of some of the dirt. And when you see it that way, it's sometimes easier to understand it from this vantage point, I think. So that's my way of describing it today, Cory. I thought that would be beneficial, especially since I'm seeing some of people that I do talk to on a regular basis, and I've never said that to them before, right? Okay.
I was gonna say too, yeah, that's the first time I've heard you mention it like that, and I think intuitively, anyone who's been working with you or been, you know, along the path for some time, they come to that kind of inward recognition that, yeah, there is no raising anywhere. It's coming home. And the image in mind that says I'm raising somewhere is actually what causes more, you know, heartache than anything. It kind of,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, it's almost like we feel that we're not good enough just the way we are. And then we lack something. And then somebody in front of us or before us, a teacher, a teaching, they have something we don't. And then we start to seek this, or a state that we long for. But the very longing itself is indicative of your what I call a smaller little self really needing to dissolve itself. What starts off to be very narcissistic almost, all about I want to wake up, I want to become enlightened. All these fancy words are really just clearing what is already there and has always been there and will always be there regardless. And so that's really what I do, what Ramaji does, and other rasa givers do. Yes, and that's, of course, the process Cory went through, and many of you are going through at the moment as well.
And maybe too, there's one piece that you mentioned in there that was really, it's you know, kind of connected to what we talked about in the email as well, which was kind of this idea of spiritual righteousness. You know, this kind of righteousness around, yes, becoming enlightened on the path of awakening. You know, even attaining a 1,000, like these kind of new false belief systems that come about through one's identity as a seeker and as an awakened being, or these things. Maybe touching on that a little bit more. I think that's an interesting point.
I kind of call it a spiritual ego. I call it, in Zen, it's called the stink of enlightenment. It's when you awaken and it doesn't last. It can't last. But originally this feeling that I've attained something, and this attainment is elevating me somehow beyond somebody else. Or even for the person who is seeking, they think that somebody who is at 1,000 or enlightened has something that they don't have. So either which way, you're missing, because fundamentally all that's really happening is an complete understanding that whatever you are, you know, that we always say we are all the self is all. That means exactly what the words say. The self, what you are, this is everything and everyone. So it's a paradox, because on one level you are in shock because you've spent all these years trying to become something, and then the big shock is, I've always been that. Having said that, once you realize that, it's very humbling in a way. And then people say, but there's nothing special. It's nothing special. This is it. But it's the not being special and the humility that makes it special. And that's how integration works. Because the more you realize how interconnected we are, how your potential is the same as anybody else's potential, your need to help, to love, to serve. This is what connects us. This is what connects us, and the word love. And it slowly integrates into this wonderful theme between people and between, you know, I mean, we call ourselves teachers. I don't even know what that means. We're all learning and teaching at the same time. But, and again, it's not a hierarchy. It's you forget it. You see, and that's what where I think a lot of people really misunderstand. They go in, dive into the study, hoping to attain something that's going to make them so special, but it's a paradox because it makes them absolutely not special. But yet that is what's so special. Cory, do you understand what I'm trying to say? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we grow, really. That is what happens. And I know sometimes people get a little bit stuck in their post-awakening process and their awakening process, but we all went through that. I went through that. I mean, it's part of being a seeker. It's part of awakening. It's part of letting go of every false tendency. And that includes the things that we don't like about ourselves. And it's really seeing where our ego is, where our work is, and that is never ending. Something always comes up. So I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, that's nice. And I think you know, there was something I was reading recently, and it was, I forget who was saying it, but it was something along the lines of this idea that, you know, he was using the typical spiritual terminology that is generally fixated on the man, but I think it's applicable to everyone. But it was the idea that after the man awakens, then the real journey is to love the woman. And in my view, I view that as, you know, the coming into the integrating the feminine kind of complete dissolution into love. But that idea of loving the woman is really where that the true, you know, union actually occurs. And that's something that I know that you've just, your energy has taught me so much about that. But that piece on that kind of tantric love, whether you're a man or woman, obviously it doesn't matter. But I think that's something that I keep hearing when you speak about this kind of dissolution into everything, this loving of everything. And it also relates to your, you said this once in one of your live casts with Ramaji, where you were on the walk and, you know, you saw a group of people that were meditating and you know, they were doing their thing. And then you saw this woman that, you know, and their kids or something, and they were like flipping out, and you're like, well, really, you know, the self is both present in both, and who is really more awakened. I mean, it's not really about more, but there's a certain questioning that comes about in the sense of just embracing life completely as it is, and that kind of is that feminine essence you're speaking of.
It is. It so is. It's interesting because non-duality itself, and if I remember correctly, even the Brahmins, the leader of the Brahmins, and even religions, there's always been a tendency toward the masculine being more prone and interested in awakening. And, you know, as a person who teaches, and I am not a feminist, just so I'm clear, I have male students and female students, and I love both genders, but, you know, it is a completely different way of understanding this. And the tendency with women is to, you know, and forgive me, but I'm just going to say it like it is. They have a tendency toward guru worship and trying to memorize the study. And that tendency is very confusing because, and they get really involved in their story, you know, their story, because they have a lot of interconnected relationships with their children or with their husbands. So their story really matters. So as teachers, you know, when you're dealing with a woman, you have to understand that you're going to be going into their story, their lives, and how do we integrate this great study into our life, into our existence, because that's really what it's all about. From the male perspective, they have got more logical minds. They tend toward viewing vulnerability and emotions as being somehow a sign of weakness. in some instances. And so their intellectual understanding of the study can be very quick, but their authentic clarity when it comes to how they're living their lives, how they're bringing it in, how they're treating their wives, their girlfriends, their friends even, I mean, whatever it may be, that's where they tend, whereas women find that super easy because they do it naturally. So you see the same study being absorbed by the male or the female in a very different kind of way. Ultimately, it's okay. And as Cory was saying, it is all about just being yourself. It really is. But it's your best self, not the little one who is constantly trying to be better than or right or that the one that is always kind of fighting, and you seeking. What you're seeking is you're seeking your own self. You're not seeking anything outside of you. It's this coming into your own authentic space. That's what this is. And then from there it just really expands. And I love that we're living in this age, because men and women alike can all get this and get this quickly.
Well, it's kind of like that email. I know we laughed at this in email, and you mentioned this one of your calls, of that question, that comment that I had seen, which was someone asked a question in a group of, can women become enlightened? And and there were so many comments on that post there, and it was actually quite refreshing, because there's so many very positive comments, in the sense that firstly, of course, and secondly, this is something I was kind of sinking into today, being in Mother's Day, and of course every day is a day to acknowledge the mother, but today has been really cool to see all these posts about everyone's mother, and everyone in a very positive and loving mood. And I was thinking, I'm like, how can I support mothers further? Like, not in any grandiose way, but just like the idea of the mother is so important. Like how could we have missed this in some ways? We see so many problems with single mothers and just mothers in general, like and maybe the earth being also a representation of that. Obviously, you being a mother yourself, I think there's so much that could be said there.
There is. I mean, that is a topic all on its own. But I mean, when you think of a mother, divine mother, I mean, even from a non-dual, even from this teaching's point of view, it's like the rise of the divine feminine. But actually, there are billions of people all over the world that are moms. Think about your mom, and think about what the role of a mother is. Very selfless. From day one, from the minute your baby's born, you're in a very selfless state. You have an immediate, pure love. All you want to do is make this baby and love this baby and feed this baby and be there for this baby. And you get so busy that the little I self that you're usually concerned with often disappears. And so I say moms who are busy, sometimes the busier you are, the more automatic you become. And that automaticness, that kind of makes you realize how in tune you are with this universal force that is actually you and isn't separate from you. And you forget as a mother. I had triplets. So it was easy to forget. I don't even know how I survived. But I was super busy all the time, but those were very clear moments. And I always say to moms that, or in any profession that you may be in, when you're busiest, when you're having one of those fantastically busy days, just up your noticing who's doing everything when you're not thinking about it. Yeah, I love moms. I hope you guys all gave your mother a big hug. Your kids all gave you a big hug. Or whatever, whoever's a mother around, yeah.
It's so true. Well, it's what's been ringing to me just in this call right now is, the golden rule of treat another as you would treat yourself. And it seems like the motherly energy, it's kind of like, it's not even a choice, like and I think that's something that's been common in what I've seen from any master, is that their teachings weren't really a teaching of opinion. It was a teaching as a description of reality, and treat another as you would like to be treated is the description of reality of pure undifferentiated love, pure unconditional love. And that essence as a mother seems like, you know, it's not even a choice. It's just you're almost forced into it, but there's an embracing of it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. You get a taste. You get a taste.
Mm.
And everyone can get that taste. Awakening leads to that. And understanding that you're always dealing with yourself in some way, shape, or form. But it doesn't mean that you're automatically going to not think everybody's, oh, I love everybody in front of me. No, you still have your nature and your personality. So if you think someone's an asshole, you can totally still think they're an asshole, but the essence of what they are. So your behavior towards them will be more, it's not that you won't be yourself, but your tendency to restrict being necessarily overtly cruel or what, it just is this feeling of connecting. And it doesn't matter where they are at. It matters where you are at. Because what is actually happening is if somebody ever does give you a mirror, enough of a mirror to say, geez, I am so annoyed with this person, so bitter with this person, that is giving you the biggest blessing of all. It's not really the people who tell you how wonderful you are all day. Your spiritual muscle comes when you've seen, oh, okay, this one's rubbing me up the wrong way. What is it within me that feels this? And then you're really able to look at your stuff. And that also is part of integration. So ultimately, it's all a blessing, whether we get upset or we don't get upset. Whatever happens is to help you discover what it is that's blocking your windscreen.
Mm.
You know.
What would you say is kind of on that note, like what would you say is the maybe most important element when it comes to this, you know, this post-awakened conversation, you know, of integration, of like embodying this essence? Obviously you speak of authenticity and living, you know, I mean, living authentically to yourself, living your natural self, but is there any other elements you feel are really important to touch on with that piece?
The most important element in the beginning is recognizing, and I've said this to Cory before, and I've said this to so many people before, you cannot afford the luxury of believing a single belief or thought. And it's very interesting because when those get emptied out and you start to see it all as a story that's formed a belief, and you're able to really look at your beliefs and see that they are, you know, it's really just a neutral, beautiful windscreen here. It's neutral. We give it meaning. We decide what we want to believe. Then you manage to change the belief systems that don't really suit you any longer. And that can be moment by moment, day by day, or whatever. It kind of happens organically. But the post-awakening process is not something you have to concern yourself with. It just happens. You can't help it. It's going to happen. And as time passes and the years pass, I would say, this may also sound strange, but even the word spirituality is another concept. Even the word awakening is another concept. Enlightenment, it's all just a word. It no longer has anything, it doesn't drive you anymore. What you get driven by your sense of, what can I do, really? Because there's no one here. So what can I do to help someone else realize that what they are, this potential that they are? It really becomes a person who wants to serve at the end of the day, I think, in my experience. And from a lot of my students too. I mean, their need to really help, to be of service, becomes enhanced in a big way. And many of you that I know on this call are already in some form of service to others. You help others a lot. All good people. You see, you're all good people already. And sometimes being of service doesn't mean spiritual service. It can just mean something in your job, being a better teacher. It doesn't really matter. But everything dissolves, and this becomes the most magical moment. Just us guys sitting here together, like, this is it. Yeah, it really is. So, and it's beautiful. I'm sorry. Well, am I answering these good, Cory?
Let's see from the group. I mean, I'm always content with your answers. Let's see if I think everyone is enjoying.
Yes.
you would like to say something in the comments, or if there's any small questions that are there. I know we're going to get into the RASA shortly. And just a note as well, for those who are on Facebook, about 8 of you watching on Facebook, to get the RASA, you'd have to join in on the Zoom link I provided. So you'd have to, just so we can see your face. So if you want to click that, and you can do that. But yeah, from my sense, I mean, these are beautiful, to the point. And I think it just becomes so simple. I mean, at least in my experience, the nature of humility is probably maybe one of the most potent elements to it all, because then that humility, removes the complexity of all the teachings of every path. I mean, especially with the internet these days, we have access to every teaching, every book, every teacher, which, on one level provides a certain doorway, but on another level creates a certain distraction from just the basics of what they're all saying, so,
Exactly.
So yeah, but
the other issue, and I left this out, but I'll add something. And I'd like to say that it doesn't really matter how awakened you are, because you are already all awake. But at the end of the day, when you wake up and you no longer a seeker, let's say, that's great. And I would say, cool, but what really changes, what really, separates like the boy from the man, the biggest thing is, how am I bringing this heavenly this into my life? As Cory was saying, like, are the ones meditating on the grass more awakened than the nanny shouting at her little girl? It's both. It's energy, and it's working, and it's always doing that. But when you're fully awakened, you're very authentic, I would say. I mean, if one were to ask me what is a sign of a person who's completely just there, they're really just being themselves. They're not attempting to be anything other than this, whatever this is in the moment, but not. You see, that's the thing. They won't be like mean and dispirited. They will come from a place that's more heartfelt, more from the heart, usually, eventually. Even if it happens the hard way, it happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Ananda, would you like to do a quick break, or just jump into the RASA?
Oh, if anybody wants, I don't need a break, but if anybody else wants to run to the men's room or the ladies' room, I'll wait. Or we can jump right in. Do all of you know what RASA is?
Yeah, maybe explain it while whoever wants to go to the washroom can.
Okay, so the RASA is a spiritual transmission. Basically, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be acting as a form of a channel. And for seekers that are seeking awakening, what I do is it's nothing to do with me. I'm not all powerful. This is not my power. I'm not giving you anything from myself. What I'm doing is I'm helping you connect to what you already are. And that's only because a lot of people haven't got the ability themselves. It's like a seeker wants this awakening to happen now, and they're not quite able to do that. And so what the RASA does is it helps them achieve, we help you bridge the connection between what you are, the divine light of energy that you are, so that it can manifest in your existence, in your reality, in your life. And what the RASA does is different for everybody, unique. Again, it's like a windshield wiper. It dissolves anything that isn't meant to be there, so that your authentic, true nature will just eventually shine through. Because you already are perfect, beautiful and perfect. That's it.
Wonderful.
So you guys just tell me when you're ready. It would be preferable if I could see everybody's heads. But if I can't, it's not the end of the world. I kind of know you're all there. Even if you're lying in bed or look like crap, I don't care. I'd rather see your head. Awesome. Thank you.
Alrighty. Just waiting for Tanya.
And then mute me, Cory, while I do the RASA, okay?
Yes, I will.
And then after the RASA, all you have to do, guys, is totally sit, relax, and then give it a permission slip. You know that word permission slip? As you believe, so it shall be. Say, yes. Pretend you are lying on the beach getting a suntan. The rays of the RASA are coming through your crown chakra, and all you have to do is receive. Yes. And and just lie there like you're getting a suntan. All cool. You don't have to meditate, or if a thought comes, it comes. It doesn't matter. Just receive. If you have an experience, fabulous. And if you don't, fabulous. We don't really do this. We don't really care much for experiences. So, and if you have one, though, it's great. Some people do and some people don't. Depends on how sensitive you are to energy.
Ananda, could you actually mute yourself just so you can unmute yourself when you're done? Okay.
You want me to start now, Cory?
Yeah, I'm just making sure Leah's here. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to mute myself. I'll start in 3 seconds, you guys. Just close your eyes. Totally relax. Totally receive. Totally just be.